This is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to the Monday, April the 18th, 2011 edition of The Exchange. Joining me this week, we have Charlie Evers, Fritz The Nite Owl, and sitting in for Marion Michaels as she is on vacation this week, our good pal with Greek heritage, which we're going to talk about in today's program, George Kasotis. Before we do any of that, though, we want to be sure to mention our sponsors, as this episode of The Exchange is brought to you by Peacock Water Conditioning, water experts since 1953. 1800 Marion Marysville Road, Marion, Ohio, 43302. For further information, dial 740-387-6312. Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Center, Scott M. Gray, D.C., across from the Marion Center between TSC and Kroger. For further information, dial 740-386-6580. And Night Owl Theater, located on the net at www.fritzlives.com. For further information, email nightowltv@yahoo.com, and that's NITEOWLTV@yahoo.com. We're going to start off this Monday, as we do each and every day on The Exchange, by going to Charlie Evers for this day in history.
And this has been quite a day in history. The midnight ride of Paul Revere and Bill Dawes occurred on this date as they rode out of Boston at 10 p.m. to warn the Patriots at Lexington and conquered the British are coming. I don't know if they ever did get there or not.
I don't think they ever did.
No, I think one of them stopped at Starbucks on the way and held up the whole thing. The San Francisco earthquake, though, struck at 5:13 a.m. on April the 18th, followed by a massive fire. There were wood stoves that overturned and broken gas pipes, and altogether 4,000 people lost their lives. Big day, April 18th.
Absolutely. The British are coming. The British are coming. We're now going to flip over to our good pal. If you don't know what you want to do tonight, if you don't know what you're going to watch, boy, have I got a guy who can give you something to watch. The Flick Pick with Fritz the Nite Owl. Fritz?
Thank you, Scott. And tonight we have a movie that was nominated for at least 5 Academy Awards and won 3 of them. Voted as Best Picture of 1960, the Best Director was Billy Wilder, and the Best Screenplay was based by I.A.L. Diamond. Now this is the same crew that gave you Some Like It Hot the year before. And this movie, as I say, a 4-star film, 1960 the year, and we take you to the world of business, everything you wanted to know about getting ahead in business, but were afraid to ask. Our hero is Jack Lemmon, a young guy who's trying to climb the ladder of success, and his boss is Fred McMurray. Turns out that Jack Lemmon is a bachelor, and he has a bachelor pad that all of his bosses and supervisors, who are married guys, want to use the Jack Lemmon apartment, and so he's passing the key around until Fred McMurray, the boss of bosses, finds out that the bachelor pad's available, and he's having kind of a fling with Shirley MacLaine. Well, Jack Lemmon is sort of a sniveling, eager beaver kind of climber. He's literally a lamb among wolves. So he reluctantly lets Fred McMurray use the apartment, and in the meantime he kind of develops a thing for Shirley MacLaine. So there's that triangle going on there. McMurray doesn't want to marry MacLaine. MacLaine does want to marry McMurray. So there's that triangle around there. It's kind of an unforgettable and kind of unsavory story, with humor though, because it's a comedy drama about how businessmen and immorality are kind of combined if you want to climb the ladder of success. It's a profound movie. It holds up very, very well today. Fred McMurray was the bad guy in this movie and was really an unforgettable heel, out-and-out heel. And his performance, he got an avalanche of mail saying, Fred, you're not that kind of guy. We want to see you as the nice guy, again, the good-natured hero. And ultimately, McMurray did go back to Disneyland to do things like the Flubber Things and My Three Sons on television, which is probably what he's best known for. He did have one other little outing as a villain in the movie The Caine Mutiny. Fred McMurray, one of my favorite actors and outstanding in this movie, The Apartment. Forgot to tell you the name of the movie. It's called The Apartment, from 1960. Won, as I say, 3 Oscars. Jack Lemmon was nominated but didn't win. Shirley MacLaine was nominated. She didn't win. Speaking of Shirley MacLaine, Nikita Khrushchev, the then premier of Russia, enjoyed this movie so much he became a big Shirley MacLaine fan and sent word through his envoy at the UN to give compliments to Shirley MacLaine for her performance in this. So a lot going for it, will hold your interest start to finish. 4-star movie, goes about 2 hours. It's called The Apartment from 1960. Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, Fred McMurray. You'll love it. Scott?
George, tell me about, you worked as an usher in a theater here in Marion, did you not? You told me that at one point.
At the Palace and at the Marion Theater.
You did both of them?
Both of them.
What's the best movie you ever saw in your ushering days, which would have been around what time?
My ushering days? Well, that was the mid-40s. Mid-40s.
What's-
45.
How did you get the job as an usher?
Well, I'll tell you, we just, they advertised to meet at the Palace Theater. I think it was right, some of the guys were coming home from the war at that time, mid-40s, 1944, 1945, 1946. Mac, I remember his last name was Mac something, McClenathan or McElhaney.
Mac the Knife.
Well, we called him Mac, that's it. He was the manager of the Marion and the Palace Theater. And actually, we had little uniforms. We had these gray uniforms with the little, what was the Johnny guy with the cigarette?
Oh, Call for Philip Morris.
Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah, some of that little story.
Remember the
Yeah,
little
sure.
Philip Morris outfits? A lot of buttons on
Call
the jackets.
for Philip Morris.
Yeah, well, we had those little outfits on, and naturally, we were skinny teenage kids, and we were ushers at the Palace Theater. Now, going back to what movies were big in those days, I remember a lot of movies. Gee, but the favorite one, you asked me for the
One that
favorite.
sticks out in your mind.
Well, the Marion Theater stuck mainly with cowboy and westerns, westerns, which was, back then was Tom Mix, Hopalong Cassidy. Gene Autry was popular and Roy Rogers, but they had a big mixture of cowboy movies. The best one I liked is that Gene Autry was riding on his horse, sitting side saddle, playing his guitar. And he says, I'm a-rollin', I'm a rootin', shootin', tootin' cowboy, but I'm rollin'. And that movie was called Rootin' Tootin' Cowboy.
Rootin' Tootin' Cowboy.
That's back in the 40s. Now, Charlie, do you ever?
Charlie, do you remember that
No, I don't.
film? Were you a cowboy
Remember
fan?
Gene
Oh,
Autry,
yes.
though, sure.
Gene Autry.
Johnny Mac Brown.
Oh, Johnny
Saw
Mac.
all of his movies.
Yeah, Sunset Carson, Johnny McBrown, Buster Crabbe, Hopalong Cassidy was always our favorite. Durango Kid was also very popular.
Durango was good.
Yeah.
Roy Rogers was really popular.
What do you think happened to the Westerns? They were at one point it.
Roy Rogers, Trigger, his horse was Trigger.
Stuffed.
Yes.
Taxidermied. We better say taxidermied.
Right, and Dale Evans.
Yeah, she wasn't taxidermied.
No, but that was his wife.
Right,
Dale
right.
Evans.
Nice lady.
That movie was unbelievable. Roy is up, can I tell a story?
Go
about the
ahead,
movie?
go ahead.
This was my all-time favorite movie. The Gene Autry movie was good, but Roy Rogers was really great. Roy is up on the mountain, and he's camping out, he's hunting, right? The ranch wasn't that far away, but he camped out that night, put his tent up. It was getting dusk, put his tent up. It's a one single tent, a little rug on the bottom so he could sleep. But he had a pair of brand-new Tony Lama boots. Tony Lama, you ever heard of Tony Lama?
I
boots?
had Tony Lama boots. Expensive.
Very expensive. Anyway, he aired them out, so he set them right, actually, the mesh curtain in front of the tent was, you could see through it. So he put his boots out, it was getting dusk, and he laid down, he had his rifle next to him, that hammer, what was that? What were those rifles called? Winchesters.
Winchesters.
Winchester rifle. And he went to sleep, and he slept good. The next morning, daylight, he wakes up, he lifts his head, and he looks out, and this cougar is chewing on his boots. Unbelievable.
It's these Tony Lama boots,
Tony Lama boots.
which were, at that point, high-dollar boots.
High-dollar boots, and unbelievable. So he grabs his rifle, loads it, clicks it, and the cougar heard that, grabbed the boots and ran up the side. Roy jumps out, takes aim, shoots, and about 50 yards, hits the cougar right in the head, kills him instantly. So Roy gets his horse, packs the tent, puts it on the back, goes over, picks up the cougar, throws it over the back of the horse, grabs his boots, didn't put them on, he had them in his hand, goes towards the ranch. Took him a while to get to the ranch, and who's standing on the porch? Dale. Dale says, "Roy." She said, "Pardon me, Roy, are those the boots the cougar chewed on?" No. "Pardon me, Roy, is that the boots the cougar chewed on?"
Boy.
George, what was the name of that movie? Whatever it was, you have no need to see it. Now you just heard it acted out right here.
We saw it.
Throw that one in the back, because you'll never need to see that one again.
Right, of course.
George, one thing I wanted to ask you about, Charlie knows about this, your Greek heritage. That's important to you, is it not?
Very important, very.
Now tell us a little bit about your Greek heritage and why it's important.
Well, because back in the early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, a lot of immigrants were coming to America, but my dad had been here, and he was working with New York Central Railroad and got a job with J.P. Morgan. But while they were working on the railroad, they ended up from New Jersey to Martel, and at Martel, Ohio, they were laying the 7th track because the engineers were saying that this is flat land, we want this to be our switching station. All New York Central trains coming from the east switch go to Chicago. They didn't finish. They had 7 tracks finished, and here comes the Pullman train up, and who jumps out? General John Blackjack Pershing. He jumped out, and he waves his wand over those immigrants, and he said, "By the order of President Wilson, you are all inducted to the United States Army." They didn't know. They couldn't speak English. They were German, French, Italian, Greek. Dad was with them, and he gets on the Pullman. They take him to Knox. They train him. They put him on a train, back on a train, take him to New York Harbor, and instead of leaving, they left Marseille to come to America because they told them to go to America, the streets were paved with gold. But what do? They go into the Le Havre, which is the northern port, and from the northern port into the Argonne Forest, that's where Kaiser Wilhelm was waiting for him, and he shot cannons of mustard gas in the air. And all these soldiers got mustard gas, and my dad lived, a lot of them died. Dad came back, went to Chillicothe, was in the hospital for 2 years, came back. Now, don't forget, this is 1915, 1916. 1917 is when they went into the Army, and they fought the First World War in 1918. Dad was wounded, came back, got his money, went to the hospital for 2 years, got his money, enough money to go back to Europe and marry his young sweetheart, my mother.
And your mother was quite a woman.
Oh, Dorothy, she was the one that started the restaurants downtown. The first one in the late 30s, early 40s, and then the second one, which I took over when I got old enough. But I worked in both of them. I worked in the restaurant. I was actually born in the kitchen.
Yep. We're going to talk more about your restaurant businesses as we go on in the week. One thing I wanted to talk about, Fritz, was Jack Lemmon. You mentioned he was in this movie
Right.
today. Has Jack Lemmon ever made a bad movie?
Not that I know of. You automatically would get 2 stars just because he was in it. And his film career, I mean, he started off big with, I think it was Ensign Pulver in, what was that, Mr. Roberts. He was a when you can hang in there with Jimmy Cagney and Henry Fonda, who were the 2 stars, and come out as one of the people that you remember. And Lemmon went all the way through his career. I don't think he ever did make a bad movie.
You know, in the 80s, he wasn't making movies as often, but when he got to the 90s, he teamed up with Walter Matthau again,
Right.
and they did the Grumpy Old Men series, they did the Odd Couple reunion, they did, what was the Out to Sea, but it was just those two, and young kids would go to the theater. I remember going to see Out to Sea, because it had a lot of the older stars in it, and that was probably around 94, 95, and the crowd was not older people, it was younger people who were reintroduced to Jack and Walter through Grumpy Old Men.
Well, I think that's just an example again of where talent and taste goes forever. And Lemmon and Mathau together were unbeatable, timeless. I mean, people 30, 40 years from now can see any one of the movies they were in together, and it will be as fresh and interesting and as exciting and enjoyable as it was when they first made it.
Absolutely. Charlie, this brings up something. We're on television right now and radio. Television and radio and commercials, movies, all have this idea that it's 18 to 49. And if you're not in that age bracket, you are dead.
Yeah. I don't feel so good. No.
Yeah, could be before the show's over today.
Yes.
Why is that?
I don't know, it's just as something that came about and everybody follows, like a train going down the track.
It's interesting though, I saw a statistic not too long ago that the people who listen at least to AM radio, 55 and older, and the income is larger than any of the other income groups at any other station, FM-wise.
Yeah. The income would be steadier, since most of us are on Social Security. That's one guarantee we'll have some money. Otherwise, employment isn't that great at times in the area, although it's picking up.
What do you do when you're at that point, when you hit 65, which is conventional retirement age, but you still want to work because you fall into that group? What happens?
Well, I went to work in a cemetery when I was 65.
Really?
Yes, and that was really interesting. It made you feel good that you were still among the living.
Still above ground.
That's right. And after that, I worked in a machine shop.
Really?
Yes, and now I work nowhere.
Now you work nowhere.
Yeah.
You're back here with me.
I'm bored to death.
When you're bored to death here,
Yeah,
that's right, Charlie. Fritz, you're a part of that too, though. You past conventional retirement age, but still want to work.
Right. Well, I was going to say, to go back to something else you were talking about, that 18 to 49, when I was in the ad agency, one of the things is, that's the age, particularly at 18 to, say, 25, 30, when young people, young marrieds, are setting their buying habits. And that is, if there are certain products that they buy at those ages, that if they like that, they will continue to stay with those products as they get older. And it's, as I said, it's the age when young marrieds are setting the buying habits. Very rarely, if you have a good experience with your first Chevy, chances are your next car is going to be a Chevy or an Oldsmobile or a Pontiac or whatever it is. Chances are you'll stay with that brand, whether it's a soup or a car or just anything. I know there was a department store in Columbus that if my mother ever wanted anything, she'd go there first, and if they didn't have it, then she'd go somewhere else. But again, it was people, when you get over 35, 40, you've established your buying habits, and so the advertisers don't feel it's that important to speak to the older people who are going to buy brand X pop, brand X beer, whatever it is, whereas it's young people that they've got to influence.
I guess I do understand that, but I guess the side of it I don't understand is, why does the person pitching to the 18 to 49 group have to be 18 to 49?
Well, I think it's sort of an identification in a way. You identify with the person that's selling you the product. Also, I think that one of the things is that that young 18 to, say, 35, they're out and about more. They're buying clothes for the baby. They're buying new appliances, as opposed to, say, older people who the kids are grown. Maybe they've left home or things like that, or working and so forth. So, again, I think that economics is a good reason why so much is geared towards the younger viewer, listener, customer.
I think you're right. One thing I wanted to bring up on a Marion issue here today, Charlie and George will be able to comment on this one. You remember the old depot sales. Depot sales,
yes.
Which was in business for years here. The other day I was driving past where the depot sales used to be, And in my mind, I flashed back on the enormous pants that they had on the wall. Do you remember those, Charlie, George?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
What became of those pants? Those, you used to, when you were young in this town, you had to go see the pants.
And most people went to see the horse.
And the horse, what happened to the horse?
The horse is on the farm of Larry Eblin on the east side, very east side of Marion County.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. Standing tall, taller than they stood at depot sales.
Really?
And incidentally, I'm on the zoning board in Clarendon Township. We just approved a relocation or an addition to a machine shop in the old depot sales building. And they do a lot of work for Whirlpool. They do some highly technical electronics. And it's really good to see they're going to have a big increase in employment there.
Good.
Great. Depot sales lives again.
Depot sales lives again. George, have you ever heard of whatever happened to the pants?
Never. Well, I knew the person that started it, Bob Babbage. He was quite a guy. Unbelievable how he built that up, from a small store. He made it. He went out there and opened up that huge, like a big Western store. A lot of...
Sold Tony Lama boots, too.
He used to sell a lot of boots.
He had Tony Lama boots.
He used to sell a lot of boots.
I bought a pair of boots.
Minimum price, $125. And many of them much more than that.
150, I
Yeah.
think I paid for
Yeah.
mine.
And that's why the depot's no longer in business. And the big pants are gone.
Nobody
big
can fill
pants.
those pants.
If anybody, well, I don't know about that anymore. If anybody knows where those pants are, I want them to email us. Wouldn't it be great to have the pants here one week?
Yes, it would.
I'd like to see the pants. If you know where the big pants are that hung on the wall at depot sales,
Maybe Ted Babbage knows. That's
Maybe.
his son.
well, there you go. Give us a call, 740-387-4649, or email us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. We want to know where those big depot sales pants are, and by goodness, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to jump into the mailbag today. I am a divorced mother of 2 boys from different fathers. Their ages are 17 and 6. My first husband died in an accident. My second husband and I discovered 2 years ago that he has recently disappeared. My youngest has been sick recently. He will recover but requires ongoing treatment and medications. The costs exceed my health insurance benefits. It has been financially difficult. My 17-year-old works after school. Because of our problems, he's had to pay for many things himself that I would have liked to have helped him with. He has not complained. He recently gave me a check that will go a long way towards helping to pay for his brother's medical bills. The check will drain his college savings. He's an honor student and has athletic and academic scholarships. This would have been his spending money for next year. He wants me to take it. I was almost in tears. I feel so guilty about taking this money from my son. What should I do? Trudy and Marion, with about 4 minutes left in this program. That's a big hefty question for 4 minutes. Fritz, what would you do?
I think that the son, he offered the money. I think that the mother should take it, thank him, and hope for better days ahead. It's, you got to give the kid credit for, stepping up to the plate like that, and I think he will get his reward. Might take a little bit longer, but she needs the money. And that's the source. I think she has to take it.
Medical's far more important than school. School's important, but if we got an ill person in the family who has to have a medical treatment, they've got to get it, right, George?
Right,
Yeah.
definitely.
Would that be your advice?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't think there's anything else really you can do in a situation like that. Have you ever been faced with anything like that, Charlie? The medical situation in the United States right now is a wreck.
It's pretty hard to even raise money to pay medical bills. I mean, bills of $100,000, $200,000 nowadays, I don't know. You could apply for the Social Security at an early age, or maybe she could have, but maybe she didn't want to go to the government for help.
It's a tough situation, and with the unemployment rate hovering around 10%, boy, that's tough. You don't want the kid, because sometimes it's hard to go back to college after you've been out a certain amount of time, and this kid is an honors student. But boy, I guess if we had a better medical system, we wouldn't have problems like this.
It's hard to tell, but this is going to give him something to talk about for a long, long time, how he helped his mother.
Give him
and
peace of
family.
mind.
Yes.
And
character.
Well, in a way, I was going to say, like in World War II, all of the guys who had to leave college to go to the Army, and so there was that big gap there, and then they came back to college, and actually, in a way, because they were more mature and had faced a lot more and learned a lot more, they did better in college than they would have done had they come right from high school where, hey, let's party.
I think you're...
So that time in the service, that break between the school might, in a way, be a
That
help
group
to
of
you.
men built this country, rebuilt it, you might say, started new industry, new businesses, and
Well, we're talking about more of that one. We're going to talk about World War II, the greatest generation. If you have a question for the mailbag, join us on Facebook under the name The Exchange Marion, or email them to us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in today. We will be back tomorrow. See ya.